Today's road trip talk is a little bit different and a little bit more interesting. I have here in my possession a customer support email exchange between Madeline and a representative from the publisher Raw Fury. This is regarding the game Star Trucker, which was released about 1 month ago and which was briefly mentioned at the start of last week's road trip talk. Originally, there had been a very different script and a very different outcome for this week's planned talk. That being said, a litany of extenuating circumstances, from changes within the game itself to Madeline's own evolving perspective on the game development process, has led to an influx of personal position swaps in real time. Therefore, I shall be narrating things today, while simultaneously picking and pulling from that draft recording, and we shall see just how well these pieces can all fit together. Now let's get on with it. Take it away, Madeline. So when it comes to the activity of driving a road vehicle, or any vehicle really, there are two fundamental principles to live by. The first principle is that for every fast vehicle that you drive, you can thereafter drive any vehicle that is slower than that. And the second principle is that for every large vehicle you drive, you can thereafter drive any vehicle that is smaller than that. Being an avid fan of racing games, I am no stranger to driving some of the fastest cars in the world, with speeds exceeding 280 miles per hour. Yet, all of these vehicles, with the exception of the Hummer EV, tend to stay within the realm of 10,000 pounds or less. So, what happens then when you multiply that weight by a factor of 10? Or even 40. You get every racer's worst nightmare. Welcome to the world of truck simulators, and boy howdy, do I hate them. Madeline's initial experience with truck simulation games came in the form of SnowRunner. Let's just say it did not go very well at all, and she dropped the game after completing the tutorial. In her defense, any game which ends their tutorial with a text-based message that reads, "Congratulations, you can now play 99% of the rest of the game, good luck," is probably not going to be the most shining example of what the genre is capable of. Star Trucker pledged to be an entirely different take on the genre. While it does maintain the core gameplay loop of completing distribution jobs from point A to point B, the game also features a story and a plot of sorts, with an adequate cast of characters being there to fully tell it. As you learn the ropes of what it means to do long-haul trucking in space, you stumble upon a nefarious plot by a corrupt corporation, who are distributing toxic chemicals causing harm to the residents of the galaxy at large. It can be a bit heavy-handed at times, but it is a plot nonetheless. The question for the player, however, is whether they are willing to put up with all of the points of contention, which are caused by decisions made by the developers, which were, unfortunately, rather self-sabotaging. So, what went wrong? Let's have Madeline tell it. The way truck simulators actually work is they are a glorified resource management simulator. Your goal is not simply to get from A to B, it is to avoid your truck having a catastrophic failure, or worse, letting the goods you're hauling be destroyed in any capacity. Star Trucker takes these challenges and attempts to put them up to 22 on the difficulty scale. Let us talk about all of the onboard resources which keep your space truck moving. Obviously, your truck thrusters need fuel, or you are not going anywhere. Between jobs, you will be going to gas stations to top off the tank, no big deal. Next, you have your power cells. These are literally giant batteries which power your truck systems. A normal truck has 2, maybe 4 batteries. Your space truck has 7. That is 2 batteries for the core system, 2 batteries for the trailer hitch system, 1 battery for your internal gravity, 1 battery for your internal oxygen, and 1 battery for your spacesuit recharger. On top of that, some of these systems have what is known as a universal computer chip, or UCC. If these break, that is basically like blowing a fuse. There is 1 for your gravity system, 1 for your interior climate control, and 1 for your spacesuit recharger. Additionally, your oxygen system has air filters, up to 4 in total. Then, if you go into space sectors which have electromagnetic interference, you need shock absorbers, 3 of them. And then if you go into space sectors with extreme solar flares, you need heavy-duty solar blinds over your windshield, and these block your vision while in use, requiring you to use your side cameras to navigate. And if you enter areas with subspace anomalies, you need a radar scanner. And we're not even done. If you collide with any physical object, such as space rocks, expect to have damage done to your truck's chassis, which you must then repair by putting on your spacesuit, launching yourself out of the airlock, and basically welding the bodywork back together while floating in the middle of space. And speaking of temperature, if your thrusters get too hot or too cold, you either have to vent cool them down externally or apply choke to warm them, and that increases your fuel usage. Yes, the level of micromanagement in this game is rather extensive, and the punishments for failure to maintain your truck are severe. Repairs are expensive, and while truck upgrades can help extend things like fuel economy or temperature regulation, if those upgrades then break, well, the repairs become even more astronomical. See what I did there? The money you make from each successful hauling job ranges from a few $100 all the way to about $10,000 at the most. That said, if you inadvertently damage the cargo that you are hauling, the resultant penalties will eat a large chunk of your payout. This all creates a war of attrition where you are essentially always chipping away at truck maintenance and repairs in order to get you from one job to the next. When you have the spare funds to sneak in an upgrade or two, it can feel like you absolutely earned it, and that is far from a bad thing. That being said, there is an old adage: work smarter, not harder. If the standard gameplay loop is not up to your personal standards, then there is a faster, much more lucrative way of making money in this game. Madeline, what say you? The answer, unsurprisingly, is trade routes. Every star system has shops where you can buy and sell maintenance items for your truck, but these shops also carry trade goods ranging from textiles to electronics to pharmaceuticals and chemicals. Some of these shops are also black markets selling more prohibited goods such as alcohols, narcotics, and even explosives. Meaning, if you go to systems that routinely sell goods at a low price, buy them all on credit, and then haul ass to a nearby system to resell those goods at a high price, you can essentially break the economy. And oh my goodness, why am I getting the craziest sensation of deja vu? Could it be because No Man's Sky thrives on the exact same gameplay loop? No, absolutely not. They wouldn't possibly— oh no. So this is the real problem I have with the game. It is a game where you spend more time in your spacesuit than actually driving. It is a game where once you get the upgraded scanner, you will be leaving your truck quite often to find salvage just floating around in space. It is a game where you will be pacing back and forth in your truck's cabin routinely to replace power cells and UCCs, or going outside of it to patch holes in the bodywork literally every 10 minutes. This was perhaps the biggest point of contention for us in covering this game. Once we stop comparing this game to other truck simulators, any advantages it has over those games immediately evaporate. Instead, we now have to compare this game to a much wider genre of space exploration games, and those games absolutely crush this title in every way, shape, and form. As a reminder, this game is $25 on the Xbox Store, and it is locked to the Series S and X unless you stream it over xCloud on Game Pass. Meanwhile, No Man's Sky is roughly twice the price, though it does go on sale to about $30 many times throughout the year. Not to mention, it is still playable on last-generation consoles, and it is over 5 times the game. You get a more diverse array of spacecraft to roam around in, more diverse trade routes, a more diverse black market and pirate bounty storyline on top of the massively open alien civilization exploration, and a universe map which is, To put it simply, orders of magnitude larger than the 32 locations present in Star Trucker. Now, devil's advocate here. We are not one to complain about having more variety in the space, again, puns, if those derivative works follow in the footsteps of what made their predecessors great. That is a fair take, we feel. It's another story altogether when those same derivative works follow in the footsteps of what made their predecessors absolutely terrible. Star Trucker shipped as a broken game. We have lost count of the number of issues we've encountered while playing this game. Hazeway is completely broken and will destroy your truck if you go through the gates with a trailer after reloading a save. Certain gates, like the ones near New Aspen, have random space junk arbitrarily placed in front of them, and the space junk respawns every single time you go through that area, in the same exact location each time. Certain superhighways, like the one in Vexmont, have obstacles which your truck will not be able to properly clear and will constantly scrape against from below, something you wouldn't deal with in a regular truck simulator where your truck is constantly on wheels on the road. And the most damning glitch of all was one in which an important side mission would fail to load, thus soft-locking your save from being able to complete the game. This brings us now to the email. Madeline, in her frustration, sent an email to Raw Fury explaining the glitches that she encountered while playing this game. Their response was to, and we can't make this up, immediately deflect to how the development team for the game consists of 2 people, and that Madeline would need to submit video footage of the glitches in question for the devs to use as QA testing. Excuse us. It is important to note that in the credits for the game, the publisher assumes a sizable amount of responsibility for the game's release, as publishers tend to do. Raw Fury, the publisher, are essentially the ones in charge of overseeing the game's development by the studio Monster and Monster, those 2 developers mentioned earlier. Raw Fury, the publisher, are the ones in charge of ultimately bringing the game to the masses through marketing, promotion, and distribution. And Raw Fury, the publisher, are the ones in charge of resolving problems when things ultimately go wrong in the post-launch. The publisher has around 40 employees on its books, any of whom could have stepped in to help these 2 programmers fix problems in the post-launch. And if that by itself didn't work out, perhaps hiring part-time contractors to pick up the slack. Trying to turn that around on the customer and make them feel guilty is how you alienate the customer into never partaking in one of your games ever again. Now, hilariously, as Madeline was in the process of writing this follow-up email, something amazing happened. An update was pushed to the game in that exact moment. This update fixed the story softlock, and it also extended the lifespan of maintenance items like power cells to make the game a little less tedious. Did it fix everything wrong with the game? Nope. Hazeway is still broken, and space junk is still poorly placed, among other things. But it is a start, and credit where it is due. Unfortunately, and this is just our personal opinion, these quality of life updates are not going to save Star Trucker. We know this because with the story glitch fixed, Madeline was able to go on and complete the storyline of the game. And the reward for completing that story? It doesn't exist. There is no reward for completing the story of Star Trucker, and the amount of resources you expend during each side mission to get to the end of the story makes it all not worth it. Madeline has been quiet for a bit, so we'll let her finish this one up. So, there is a sector of the galaxy, aptly named Hell's Pocket, where the temperature is an incendiary 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the devs probably expected you to only be able to traverse this area using solar shades, right? Well, if you set your thermostat to cold or even moderate and blow her on high, and upgrade your suit to max oxygen saturation, you can breeze through this entire section of the game without ever using your solar shades, because the cabin temperature will only hit about 300 at most, which your spacesuit is more than capable of withstanding. and it is the trippiest shit imaginable for that very reason. When I did this while hauling a 400,000 pound nuclear reactor, that was literally a jump the shark moment for me. When it gets down to it, this is a game which tries to throw more and more at the player the longer that they play, and when it runs out of things to throw at the player, it stops being a game and becomes simply an activity. If you are making infinite money on trade routes and you can exploit the game's systems to make hazards negligible, then is there really a point to continuing the standard gameplay loop? With no reward other than gameplay achievements, it becomes rather easy to drop the game and forget about it the moment you hit roll credits. Compare that to a game like No Man's Sky, where even after 250 hours, you still have not run out of things to do. We don't know. It just makes Star Trucker so much harder to recommend. Credit to the developers who poured their heart and soul into the concept. We refuse to undermine that in any way. But at the same time, perhaps this game should not have been released in 2024. As much as it pains us to say this, we can't help but feel that Raw Fury assumed erroneously that if a game like No Man's Sky could ship as an obvious beta in 2016 and go on to be one of the best games of all time, that Star Trucker could pull off the same miracle. It cannot. For now, we would say stream the game on a service like Game Pass, but we cannot recommend buying it. Anyway, that's it for this video. We will see you in the next one.